Organized labor has declared the commencement of a nationwide strike from midnight yesterday. The two labor unions have directed workers to stay off work from today, Tuesday. But in response, the presidency and the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, has reminded labor that a restraining order was still in force, and the order was issued last week by Justice Kayib of the National Industrial Court. The TUC president, Festus Osifo, had announced at a press conference in Abuja yesterday, Monday, that the labor action would commence today, Tuesday, in protest against the alleged assault on the president of the NLC, Joe Ajaero, by suspected thugs in Owerri, the Imo State capital, on November the 1st. Speaking at a news conference, Osifo explained that all the affiliates of the NLC and TUC have been mobilized for the strike, which might paralyze economic activities across the country. If you recall, Joe Ajaero and other labor leaders had led the protest in Owerri, the Imo State capital, over the alleged failure of the state government to pay its workers, among other grievances. But the demonstration had hardly started when the labor leaders were allegedly physically attacked by thugs who also disrupted the protests. The state governor, Hope Uzodinma, had accused the labor leader of meddling in the affairs of states, hinting that Ajaero action was politically motivated. But whatever the narrative is, that which happened in Imo State is now robbing all other states of the Federation, hence an issue that really needs a quick resolution. But the big question and the big story for today is there going to be a quick resolution of this issue so at least 200 million Nigerians do not suffer on account of one man? And what should be done to address other major issues affecting the country? Well, these and more, as we look at the state of the nation, is what this edition of the big story is all about. We're talking about the state of the nation and looking at the strike that is already ongoing as we look at insecurity and the economy that seems to be taking a hit. And that's what we're looking at today on the big story. We're talking about the state of the nation, but we're looking at three critical sectors. I will start off with the strike as much as we look at insecurity and top it up with the economy that seems to be on its knees. But anyway, we're not on the knees, but rather right here in the studio. And I do have our guests that will be helping us look at it. We're talking about an economist and also social critic. And we're talking of our very own Mr. Gideon Oguns. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike. Well, why are you not on strike?
Well, anyways, anyway, I'm not on strike because I'm on the private sector, number one. And number two, we need to do what we need to do to keep the nation going. And by the way, I know the NLC president is president for all workers, but...
Thank you.
Sorry, my president was not beaten. But anyways, let's quickly go to it rather. Now, sir, I really want us to start with the issue of the strike. And if we're starting with that very issue, I rather want us to start with a statement that's accredited to the special advisor to the president on information and also strategy. And I'm talking of no other person but Bayo Ananuga. Well, anyway, he said this yesterday. He said, we notice with dismay the decision by the NLC and the TUC to call out workers to commence a strike action from midnight despite a restraining order issued last week by Justice Kayib of the National Industrial Court. This decision by the NLC and the TUC, other than being ego-tripping, I underline that word, ego-tripping, move is clearly unwarranted. It's an attempt to blackmail the government by the leadership of the NLC, and the federal government is still at a loss as to why the NLC and TUC decide to punish the whole country of over 200 million people over a personal matter involving the NLC president, whose error of judgment, I still on the line, led to an assault on him in Owerri. He went further to say while he was planning to incite workers in Imo State into a needless strike. Still on the line. Well, he went further to say if the federal government does not, he said the federal government condemns or do not condone any form of violence and assault of any sort on any Nigerian. In response to that very issue, the Commissioner of Police in Imo, under whose watch and the incident happened, has already been transferred away from the state. So my question now is, looking at the statement accredited to the Special Advisor on the President on Information and Strategy, I want you to react to that as you also will react to the issue of the strike. All the underlying factor, number one, a tripping move is clearly unwarranted, whose error of judgment led to assault on him, and the needless strike, and also the federal government, or rather has taken a move already with the suspension or transfer of the Commissioner of Police of Imo State, and also do not condone any assault on any individual.
All right, Mike, the point is, good morning once more, my beloved Nigerians. The fact is, let me quote again, that he that must come to equity must come with clean hands. When the last strike was called off, about 24 hours or thereby, one of the stands or resolution of that strike was that a copy of the agreement should be filed at the court. Is it that the government forgot that the purpose for which that documentation was filed was that in an attempt to renege or to not fulfill that, NLC or TUC will no longer give you a notification of going on strike? They were the ones who signed and filed. So on what basis is the industrial court or any courts of the land telling them a restraining not to go on strike? You see that he that is coming to equity is coming with colored hands. Now, let's go specifically to Imo State.
Okay.
I want to
because that's the reason for it.
From the bottom. If it is true that the government says he does not support the battering, the molestation of any individual under any guise, have they come out to condemn
the assault? The
assault. Have they made a public statement, whether Governor Usodima, whether the presidency? Everybody have been having a conspiracy of silence. Why? They only want to color it on a political jargon. Who are these thugs? Who is the Commissioner of Police a thug? How come is the Commissioner of Police that is now being transferred? Have they investigated to see that it was the Commissioner of Police that gave the order? Or is all an attempt to sweep it under the carpet? So he have not said anything. Now, which ego is being pampered here? Is it the man who is calling out that the suffering meted on the Imo State workers can no longer be condoned? 18 months of no salary, 24 months of staggered salary? I think these people are inhuman.
Okay, well, anyway, that's quite a strong statement. But okay, in all of that, let's really come to the issue. Because, yeah, we can't just be talking without really looking at the issue. That seems to also necessitated this. Now, while narrating his ordeal, I'm talking about Joe Ajero, on Friday to newsmen, he explained that the police in Owerri handed him over to the thugs who brutalized him. And that's what he said. Which in large extent means that he's holding the federal government liable for the issue. But the police rather also said in response that all they did was they took him into protective custody to protect him from the mob action, which means indeed there was an action taken already. But whether it's back and forth on who is saying the truth or who is not, I have two very important questions. Two important questions, all centered on this. Number one question, should he have been in Owerri protesting over the worker salaries that you talked about, especially very close to the elections? Is that not a political move itself? That's my number one question. Number two question, do you feel the government, that the federal government, should have done more regarding, rather should have done more rather than the transfer of the Commissioner of Police in Imo State? Will you feel it would have helped to stop the situation that we are now being faced with us? Or do you feel it was even needed for them to even approach the National Industrial Court to get a restraining order to stop the NLC? Because why I'm asking that, if we listen to Festus Usifo yesterday, he said they want the government to first meet regarding the brutalization of the president of the NLC. So let's, the two important question is, like,
should he have been there?
Yeah, should he have been there? Okay. Because like the special advisor on information and strategy to the president said, it was a misguided judgment being there at that very close time to the politics, to the election.
I stand to disagree. Because the governance and government of Imo State have been consistently consulted. It is not, he didn't just wake up and went to Imo State. There are issues.
But we also do know that there were court orders restraining him, restraining the NSC on any protest in Imo.
Now, if there were court orders that were restraining him and he filed a court judgment, is it to brutalize him? Are we now in a banana republic where the way to seeking justice is injustice? I don't believe there was a court restraining order anywhere, because if it were, he would have been charged of running foul against the judgment, and the needful judicial processes would have been done. But they knew they were not. And what, I don't want to believe what you said, that policemen will hand somebody in protective custody to thugs.
To brutalize.
Rather, I want to put it the other way. The thugs have handled him. And for him not to be killed, they extracted him
to protective
with the bruises. Because pictures don't lie. You can see his face. So the point here is, you see that there is a twist of the information. So should he have been in Imo State? The answer is yes. What is the best time to make a politician sit up? Let's be honest ourselves. The election is just by the way. And there are things you want to take from the government. The best time to do it is when you mostly they need your votes. So to me it was the right time.
Don't you feel, knowing that the Nigerian Labour Congress is a pure extension of the Labour Party, that he was meddling in political issues and campaigning for the Labour Party candidate at Omachunum?
I disagree, sir. The Labour Party and the Labour movement are not sequential. They are not the same. The issues here, we are not political. The issue here is that pensioners have not been paid, civil servants have not been paid. Let them come out to the public domain to say that these were not the issues that were carrying him to the place. Okay. What they are just trying to do is interpreting that coming to stage a protest will have made workers not to vote for them, which is the side of the coin. But then we all know that if you want to get the best out of a politician, you hold him close to his election. So we need to balance it. So there was a need for him to be in Imo State
at that time.
Now, if they were not afraid of facts, what you do is engagement. So immediately he landed at the airport, for instance, they would have taken him maybe to an office. We know why you are here and all the wrangling that will have taken place. You can even keep discussing for 48 hours. 72 hours.
Well, would that not be adoption?
I don't want to call it any name. But then, because it is a discussion, deliberations are on, nobody will have been labeling the commission because
Okay. Now you stated that fact. Now let's go to that second question.
Good.
Do you feel a transfer, the government would have done more than rather than transferring the commissioner of police and rather go running to industrial court? Should they have done something different?
The second issue is, why transfer the money? If a matter happens that is derogatory, we are expected that a committee be set up to actually unveil the facts that led to. Right? So where are the facts? How come a scapegoat have already been punished?
But some will argue with you that that transfer was normal, especially as it concerns the election in Imo State.
It is the song they are singing.
Okay.
The song they are singing.
Okay, we are making response to the song.
They said
But I doubt if you are dancing well to that.
Because federal government does not condone the battery, the beating of anyone. The commissioner of police have been transferred. And my question is, did the commissioner of police go to beat the man? And if it is yes, assault cases should go to court.
But they say they transferred him on the ground of neutrality.
Oh my God, that's grammar.
But the grammar we read
somebody had been beaten.
Okay.
Those who were in charge of beating him, instead of taking them to court, you transfer him to a more lucrative position. Then are you not repairing evil with a good omen?
So running to the national industrial
It was just to buy time. I started by telling you that the last consent agreement between Labour and government is filed in the court that said in is it 4 weeks or 6 weeks something must be done. This is not rocket science. It's filed. The Minister of Labour filed it and they celebrated it. Or they have forgotten so shortly.
So you feel a statement would have been in order condemning the act and a stronger action would have taken because that's what Festus Osifo said yesterday. We wanted the government to meet regarding the brutalization of the Juwajero.
Or Uzodima had condemned the battle.
That you mean Tinubu itself?
If the presidency
yes,
or the Imo state government had come up to say, look, though we feel this, but in strong-worded statements, we condemn in totality the manhandling of the president of the NLC. Some of us will have been supporting them. But they've been dancing around as if they are beating him in a misnormal situation. Now, if we allow Labour to be muzzled, to be quieted, then what happens to the work?
Now, somebody feel, or Nigerians feel different to that very question you've asked. And why Nigerians feel different is, do you feel the labor union is losing its full acceptance by the whole Nigerians? And I have a reason for asking this question. And I like going back into time. I'm good at that. If you take your mind back to October the 9th, precisely, of 2004, when no other person but Adams Oshomole was the president of the NLC. He said he was adopted by SSS operatives when he was going for a protest. And the response that followed that very remark of Adams Oshomole was massive at that time. Nigerians were all backing him and were calling for the removal of the head of the SSS as of that time. But now it's quite different. We had an NLC president that was beaten. Even somebody met me last week when we were talking about this, and he said, they give NLC president better beats. That means people are indifferent to the issue of the NLC. Some feel they do not truly represent them, but represent only a sector of workers that are benefiting and the private sector and others are not. So my question is, has the NLC also lost face on account of some of their actions and inactions over the years? That's why we do not see a massive. By now, Nigerians would have been massively showing frustration, anger towards that issue of the beating of Juwajero. But that's not the case.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened is they decided to muddle in the murky waters of politics.
Brings us back to politics. But go ahead.
The second thing that also made them lose most of their patronage are the issues for which they now call for mass actions. I'm sorry to say, after the days of President Goodluck Jonathan and the strikes thereby that were led both by the union and the then opposition party, they've not been able to look into national interests as far as issues are concerned. The more you hear is salaries, wages, but there are other biting things.
That's more concerns to Nigerians. Okay.
Yes, going terribly wrong with the other citizenry, for which they are silent. I want to give you just two.
Okay, go ahead.
High which, when VAT was increased, when the petroleum hike came, the purpose for which they were striking was for these two things, almost all Nigerians would be involved. But their narrative these days is as if only those who pay check-off dues to them are the people they go fighting for. So I agree with you in this, that a large portion of Nigerians no longer see them like they saw Adam Osromole, like they saw the labor movement
in the past,
pre-2007. But from that day till now, they've actually lost a tranche of trust on whose side
they seem to
are. There are even times we label them that they are pro-government. Because when these things, look at the issue of the refineries. For how long have refineries not worked? And what have they done? Particularly the two you see. Nupeng and Nepengasin and all that, they are all in that oil sector. The refineries aren't working, yet no action. So they brought themselves to this.
Okay, no, we'll bring ourselves to more discussion of the state of the nation. We need to go on a break now, but when we come back, more discussion as we look at the state of the nation. We're talking about the present strike that is already ongoing. We'll be looking at insecurity and most especially a troubling economy. Let's go on a break.